The next thing that we need to do is, now that we've set up our HTML, is to be able to select the elements that we want to use within our code, and we place them into our objects. So we've got one item over here, which is that entire form that we just created. So that's the task adder. So let's go ahead and we'll just give it a value of task adder, and we're going to select it from the DOM. So using the document object, we can do query selector, because we're only selecting one, so we can use query selector. And let's just we got to do it the same way as we do with classes, where we specify it in the same as the CSS. When we do the dot for classes, we do the hash for IDs, and then we do the tags are just going to be the plain elements. And also, just to quickly list out, I'm going to use a console directory, and we'll list out the document object so that we can take a closer look at all of the content that's available in there. So listing it out, just refreshing the page. When you do a console directory, this is actually going to list out the whole directory of that object. And you can see here within this directory, we've got all of the contents that we've got within our page. So we've got our body element, we've got all of the children there that are listed, the child nodes. So we see we've got text, we've got a container, which text, script text. So it's in line with all of our source code as well. And then you can just navigate through here and you can grab any one of these values and of course use it within your script. And that's the nice thing about it, is that it's just really easy. It's just one giant object, and it's got a lot of variables, a lot of value, and a lot of things that you can select. We've even got all of the event listeners. So every element has an event that you can listen on, and if these events, they can trigger off certain functionality, and they can invoke functions, and a whole lot of really cool stuff that's available within JavaScript. So you see there's just a ton of these event listeners that you can attach events to and have them trigger off things happening within your web page. And this is where all of that interactivity comes in, because you're able to really create that interactive dynamic environment using the document object, or the DOM. So it's the document object model. We see we've even got the title of the page, and if we wanted to, so this is a variable, we can update it, we can set it, and to pretty much do anything that we want. There's just a ton of options that are available for us. So it's always a good idea, if you're not familiar with the DOM, to take a look through and just see all of the things that are available within the DOM. And coming up as well, we're going to show you even more things that you can do with the DOM. We see that with the forms. They've got their own object here. So we've got a form, and we've got a form called task adder. So we can actually identify this form and the content contained within the form just by simply referencing that as well. So that's another really useful thing, because this gives us the ability to select elements and content that's within our form really easily. And again, everything that you see visible is available within the DOM. And you can look at this within any page that you want. You can open up your console, and just going to clear out this one so it looks like it's got some errors there. And we just, all we have to do is just output the document object, and you can see that even on any web page you visit, you've got access to all of this information. And then of course you can change things and update them. And this one's got a lot of elements, so this gives you a better understanding of all the different things that are available. They've got all of the different footers, the headers, the hero, wrapper, Twitter cards, meta information, and just a ton of stuff again. So definitely take a look at go over to your favorite website, open up the DOM, and check that out and see all the different things that are available within the DOM. So there's a few other things that I want to still finish off, because we grabbed our form so that we can listen for the form submission, and then we can take some type of action on it. So that's just listening for an event listener. And also we need to set up a few other elements. So we want to grab our, and I'm using const. So const is for variables essentially that aren't going to be changing. And of course, we're not changing the document object, we're just referencing it. So that's why I'm using const for this. And then let is for setting variables that are going to be changing in value. So this is the newer way of doing var, var. Of course, you could still do var if you wanted to. That's still an option. And this just gives you more control over the scope of the variables that you're using within your code. So again, we're going to use query selector and just the plain query selector because we've only got the one element that we're selecting. And you could also use the query selector all, but that means that you get all of them. And my tasks. So we're referencing the my tasks element. We're going to add the event listeners as well. So let's set those up as well. Since we've got this open, and we can see that we've got a few event listeners that we wanted to add in. So one of them that we wanted to add in is all the items within the task list. We wanted the ability to be able to check them off as done. So we need to be able to select the elements, and because these are going to be dynamically generated, we have to select them off of the parent and then reference the ones that triggered off the event. And I'm going to, of course, show you how to do that coming up. So now let's just finish off our event listener. So we need to use our task adder object that we created, and we're adding an event listener to that object. And the task adder is the form, so we want to listen on the submit of the form. And submitting the form is going to trigger off a function that we'll just call add task. And usually when I do create these, I like to set up the functions as well, so that I don't have anything that I'm not trying to access that isn't available. And I'm also going to comment the console directory out as well. And the other task that we wanted to add in is I wanted to listen to the my tasks, and whenever these tasks get triggered, then I want to be able to cross out the ones that aren't being used, the one that was clicked. So if we want to mark a task as done, then that would be the way to do it. And we'll just create a function, call it toggle done. And again, go down here and we're going to create a toggle done function that we're referencing in there. So basically, whenever these get clicked, we're going to invoke these functions, and just to make sure that it's working. It's always a good idea as well that we just make sure that it's working. So that one is going to trigger off done, console log, and this one is going to trigger off submitted because this is the submission of the form. So let's try that out, refresh it, open up our console. So if we click these, we see that they're done. We also see that we can add tasks in as well. And then this part here is because we added the required into the form. That's why that's popping up. So if I was to remove that, which I don't want to do because this is a required field since it's our only field. So that's why we've got that in place there. So go ahead and set this up and add in your selectors, select the elements that we created earlier in the last lesson, and then add event listeners and add some functions as placeholders and try out those events. Make sure that they're being invoked and that everything is working properly, and then you're ready to proceed on to the next step, which is going to be building out the functionality. So that's coming up.